The following program has been provided by the Pacifica Radio Archives Preservation and Access Project. For more information, call 1-800-735-0230 or log on to pacificaradioarchives.org.
In my last broadcast, I discussed today's intellectual vacuum, the total absence of political principles, the desperate need of a consistent, integrated philosophy. I discussed the present state of the Republican Party and its candidates for the coming presidential election. Now let us take a look at the Democratic Party. It is only philosophical principles that enable men to look ahead, to project or plan the course of a country long range in terms of years or decades. Today's disintegration has shrunk our vision to the range of a week or of a moment. What can one say about President Johnson's gesture of renunciation, of refusing to run for the presidency? One may regard it as melodrama or as farce with equal validity. If it were fiction, one would say it is bad, improbable melodrama. One would say that no responsible statesman would announce such a momentous decision in such a manner, that he would not spring it on the country as a surprise, like a ham actor playing to a bored gallery. But this was not fiction. It was reality, the reality of today, the spectacle of the president of the greatest country on earth announcing a decision that might affect the life of every human being in the world, a president concerned with the fact that the news had not leaked out, his manner suggesting pleasure in some thought such as, "I stunned them, didn't I?" It is impossible to tell what President Johnson's future plans and intentions really are. But, for the moment, what are we now left with in the Democratic Party? The Senators Eugene McCarthy and Robert Kennedy. Both these gentlemen have recently written guest columns for the New York Times expressing their spiritual, intellectual positions. And they did express it very eloquently, if you know how to read between the lines. I quote from the column by Senator McCarthy on March 30th, 1968. Quote, "Everywhere I have campaigned, I have sensed a deep uneasiness about the war and about the quality of our leadership. It flows from a profound and growing conviction that something is wrong with the direction of American society. Americans are not by nature a people that wishes to oppress their fellow citizens or oppress the peoples of other nations, and they do not wish to be led by fear. Yet we see the growth of leadership by fear. We are finding among ourselves fear of remote enemies and fear of our fellow citizens. I have found this uneasiness among every kind of American, and my most urgent appeal is not to any ready-made political bloc or alliance of interests or constituencies in this country. It is to one constituency, a constituency of conscience, of hope and of trust in the future. Those who have come over to my cause have abandoned fear, disillusionment, defeatism, and a kind of despair in America." Close quote. What kind of fear is Senator McCarthy referring to? He does not specify. The column does not contain a single indication of who are the remote enemies or our own fellow citizens which Americans now fear. But surely the implication is clear. It can only mean communism abroad and at home. Our remote enemies are the communists, the bloc of communist countries which has openly announce that they intend to conquer the world, and which, in the years since World War II, have been steadily enlarging their conquest of the world and have been gaining victories with our silent sanction by default. Is this what we are not supposed to fear? If you see a horde of savages advancing upon you, who have previously announced that they intend to exterminate and enslave you, wouldn't you, in reason, be justified in feeling fear? Not the fear of cowardice, but the realization of the danger and the necessity of taking action against it? And if you see among your fellow citizens men who openly declare that their allegiance belongs to that savage horde, that they are communists or fellow travelers or sympathizers of communism, and they intend to enslave the rest of us, isn't that cause for feeling fear? Again, not the fear of cowardice, but the rational fear of realizing that one is up against a deadly enemy and that the battle is serious, that it is not to be solved by hope and trust, but by clear policy and a consistent philosophy, including a morality that opposes evil of that kind firmly, fearlessly, and self-righteously. But that is not what Senator McCarthy advocates. I do not mean to imply that the war in Vietnam is the proper way to fight communism. It is a useless, senseless war which one should oppose, not for the reasons offered by McCarthy or Kennedy, but by reason of the fact that it is a suicidal war which does not represent American national self-interest and in which America has nothing to gain. However, Mr. McCarthy's program is not concerned merely with the war in Vietnam. He is talking in wider terms. And this man, who is now being publicized and acclaimed as a brave crusader, has nothing better to offer us in the face of today's world situation, nothing better than a few tired, old benevolent bromides about hope and trust, rather than fear, disillusionment, defeatism, and a kind of despair in America. America today has good ground to feel despair, and one of these grounds is the fact that Senator McCarthy may claim, even for the moment, the position of a brave crusader, if this is all that he has to offer. Senator McCarthy, however, is an almost appealing figure by comparison with his immediate rival, Senator Robert F. Kennedy. I quote from the column by Mr. Kennedy on February 10, 1968. Quote, President Johnson speaks of a mood of restlessness. Cabinet officers and commentators, poets and protesters tell us that America is deep in a malaise of the spirit, discouraging initiative, paralyzing will and action. We have fought great wars, made unprecedented sacrifices at home and abroad, made prodigious efforts to achieve personal and national wealth. Yet we ourselves are uncertain of what we have achieved and whether we like it. Our gross national product now soars over $800 billion a year. Yet the gross national product does not allow for the health of our youth, the quality of their education,